Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Buckeye Breakdown. Owen Smith, Matt Warner back here again. We are here to break down the Cotton Bowl that is happening Friday, January 10th at 7:30. The second of two semifinal games. The first one taking place on Thursday between Notre Dame and Penn State. Matt, we were just talking about, we recapped the and still insane to me victory that happened on January 1st, just last Friday. And we are back here again on a Monday, ready to prepare for this game. How are you feeling?
Feeling good. It's good to be on the verge of this game. The Oregon game feels like it was 3 weeks ago in my mind. It feels like that was forever ago. So it's good that the week's here. You've seen some of the media stuff. I really like what I've heard from Ohio State's guys and kind of how they're viewing this, how Ryan Day's getting them ready. The rat poison is in full effect from Texas faithful and Sarkisian, and so it's good that we're here. And like I said, I just like the way talk is talk, but they've kind of backed it up these last two games, and so I feel pretty good. Excited to get into this matchup. Like I texted you right before we went, and it's like, looking at all this, there's so many things that feels like it favors Ohio State, but then Texas does so many things really well that maybe Ohio State hasn't quite seen at the level that we're going to see on Friday. That just makes for this to be just an all-time matchup. Two just blue blood programs that they get to go head-to-head. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it was as the days have gone on, I've gotten more and more nervous about the matchup. I think almost like in that first 24 hours, maybe even 48 hours, I was kind of like already thinking about the national championship a little bit. I think a lot of media and a lot of like fans were kind of feeling that way because Texas, they had the closest the closest first round matchup. They certainly had the closest quarterfinal matchup against teams that they definitely should have outmatched on paper, right? Clemson and Arizona State. And they go down to the wire, specifically in that Arizona State game. And arguably, right, a couple things go a different way. Targeting call happens, and it is Arizona State that we're talking about here. So, I think I got caught up in that a little bit, and I think a lot of people did. And as the week has started, and as I've been tuning into more stuff, I do feel more and more nervous of like, oh no, this is still a hill to climb. Like this is not just a cakewalk. And the Buckeyes have made the first two games look like a cakewalk, but we'll get into it. I mean, there are things that can go wrong, right? There's still all those performances from earlier in the year that make this team human. So, have you felt similarly? Did you feel like you were maybe looking ahead too much, or did you feel like as soon as you knew Texas was the next opponent that you were kind of locked into that and weren't thinking as much about the Natty?
I mean, so it's tough when you put on a performance like that against the number one seed, undefeated team that already beat you, and not just the performance and the score, but the vibe that the team gave off, and it just everything. So it was hard not to think of oh yeah, this team's got the stuff right now, and they've got everything to go win it all. Very quickly though, after that, I was like, stop thinking about Penn State. Stop thinking about Notre Dame. Think about Texas. Not that we're playing in the game. That what we do doesn't matter. But as a fan, it was really quickly I'm just focused on go beat Texas, and then we'll have a celebration, and we'll go to the next one. So my mind quickly shifted away from I could give two shits about the national championship because we're not there yet.
Good.
So and you heard those things from media day, where the guys are like, look, we're not thinking about a national championship right now. We're thinking about Texas, and we're thinking about the opportunity to play one more game alongside our brothers. Like that is where our mind is right now. They tried to get baited multiple times into like, saying the wrong thing, giving bulletin board material. And I think, I think Ohio State players know full well too, like Texas is a really good team. They're going to do things that some other teams haven't had the ability to do. We'll get into that a little bit, mainly on the defensive side of the football. So, I'm happy with where we're at. I'm excited to talk about Texas. You want to go ahead and get into it?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. I think the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and I don't know how much credit it's going to get. I don't know how much credit it got before yesterday, but there was the press conference yesterday, and I didn't realize it going into that press conference that this team does have a lot of familiarity with Texas, although they haven't played. Ohio State and Texas haven't played. Of course, they'll open the season next year. Probably going to look, or it is going to look a lot different. It's not going to be like a revenge game for either team. There's going to be a lot of turnover on both rosters.
It's going to be a revenge game no matter what. So whoever comes out on the wrong side of this is going to be out for blood next year.
For sure.
I think that's another cool little wrinkle of this is, you have this matchup. You immediately play each other at the beginning of the season next year.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And then if you get past this as Ohio State, you have the option of, pick your poison. You have Penn State, who you already knocked off in their house, or you've got Notre Dame, who you beat on a last-second touchdown last year. So, it's kind of interesting, thoughts of any way this goes for Ohio State. The stories that come afterwards are going to be really fun. But,
for sure.
Like you said, there's guys that do have familiarity with Texas. Will Howard's had quite a few stabs at him and has never had the chance to walk away with a victory against them. I think that's an interesting piece. I think Will Howard right now bleeds scarlet and gray.
Oh yeah.
But there's still a part of him that hates and despises Texas football and wants to get this one over on them. And then, you have it noted here, McLaughlin and Downs had the opportunity to go up against Texas in 2023. So, they have a little bit of, inside baseball knowledge on them. How do you think that plays into this? Or do you really think the teams are different enough and, do you think it plays any kind of big impact on it?
I think it is going to be Caleb Downs. I think his familiarity with with Ewers and some of his tells, some of the reads that he'll have to make on Ewers specifically, that's different than having to prepare for a Riley Leonard, somebody that you haven't had that experience in a game against or even, on tape. So I think that is the biggest advantage, but I don't want to count out. I know McLaughlin's not playing, but he is still around the team. He still is in the locker room. He's helping these guys prepare. He seems to be, a very vocal leader. And so he has some of that experience against the defensive line. I know there's been some turnover there, but that can lead to advantages for Hinsman specifically, but maybe some of the guards as well, or just the offensive line as a whole. So I would say those two have the biggest advantage. But I don't want to take away from Will Howard's advantage either. Clearly a different offense and different weapons that he has at his disposal. But, he has, again, similar to Caleb Downs, has that experience going against his team multiple times. But just last year, he had a pretty good performance if you look just at the stats, right?
Yeah, if you're stat watching, it looks like he balled out.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Do you put any weight into it, and if so, kind of do you lean the same way?
I think I put more weight, and maybe it's not the right weight, on the Will Howard side of things. Like I said, there's the chip on the shoulder of I've never beat these guys, and then there's just the pressure of it being win or go home. And it's a really good defense, a very, very good defense. So this is an opportunity, not just for Will Howard to help us advance, but for him to show, hey, I can make the right plays. I can make the right reads. I can do all the things against elite level defenses. that should earn me a jersey on Sundays. So like there's just so much that go into this. He only has, one, hopefully two opportunities to prove those kinds of things. And this is a prime opportunity. The thing that kind of, like I said, makes me a little bit nervous is we've seen in these situations this year with Will Howard, where it's like, there's a forced pass. There's something that feels a little off about his game. But in the two biggest moments of the year against Tennessee and Oregon, like, it's been just primetime Will Howard slinging it, making the right decisions. And I think that's the guy I expect to show up on Friday. So Will Howard more so. McLaughlin, obviously has some inside, but like Caleb Downs, I think Caleb Downs is one of those guys that's like, I don't care if I've never played against him. I'm going to watch 100 hours of film and I'm going to know I'm going to know what they had for breakfast this morning. Like that's the way that like people talk about him as kind of a preparation guy. So having the on-field experience, but like he has the ability to do that against just about anybody with how smart he is. So I feel good about having those pieces, but it's the same thing for them as well. It's like they have multiple years of film and experience playing against Will Howard. Mm-hmm. Like they kind of know his tells. Now, the Will Howard they saw at Kansas State is a little different than the Will Howard they see at Ohio State. Like I saw something about like Sarkisian saying, he's a really athletic, mobile guy. And it's like, we thought, we really thought. And like, maybe this is the Will Howard rushing breakout game, but I think he's pretty confident right now, sticking in the pocket and slinging it. And I think that's kind of the identity right now of this offense. So
for sure.
Well,
yeah, so each of us, and we've talked about it, right? We're inside baseball here, but we're trying to get better at our understanding of X's and O's, and we threw it out there, or you threw it out there on Twitter. Like, if you have any suggestions on like things to programs to get into, or things to subscribe to, like, let us know. But we did take some time kind of watching a little bit of Texas offense, a little bit of Texas defense. I spent more time watching the Texas offense. I would say I spent more time on the Georgia SEC championship because I watched the ASU game, most of that, and not putting too much weight into earlier in the season. So give you a little bit of my breakdown and look for some of your feedback on thoughts there, and how we feel like the OSU defense kind of matches up with their offense. So I think from what and then on the flip side, after this, you'll get into the defense, and we'll do the flip side of that as well. So I think the biggest thing that I pulled up or picked up on is that, Quinn Ewers, we all know he's kind of prone to mistakes and all of that. But the biggest thing I think to the advantage of the Buckeyes is when they were getting tore apart in the Oregon game, or, some of these different matchups, it seemed to be more of a guy that can escape the pocket, right? Like somebody that can go extend a play. And Quinn just doesn't seem to have that ability, whether it's just not the athleticism there or whether it's just injury, whatever it may be. But he just does not see. He seems like a very pocket passer. Like if things break down, like he's throwing it away or he is getting sacked. And I think that is the biggest thing that stood out to me. I mean, they have the weapons. We're not going to take away from Helm and Golden and Bond and the two Blue and Wisner. Like they have a ton of weapons, just as Ohio State does. But I do think that's the difference maker there. Yep. And I think that if you can, my overall thought was if you can get pressure on him without having to send the entire house, I think that it'll be a good day for the Ohio State defense. And I think that they've been able to do that recently with how they've been scheming things up. And I mean, I guess I'll pause there. I have a couple other thoughts, but I know you've watched a little bit of Quinn Ewers here and there. Yeah. But do you feel similarly from what you've seen in limited watching of Quinn?
Yeah, and I think you hit home. It's the times that Ohio State has had issues this year is a semi-mobile or mobile quarterback is extending plays. They're picking up a 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 by scrambling out and either finding an open guy or finding the open rushing lanes. And Quinn is not necessarily going to be that guy. Like you said, it's all going to be about, can Ohio State get home, which they've done really well so far in the college football playoff, and can they contain? They do have some guys that can make plays on the outside. Like Bond is getting healthier from everything I'm reading. Like he was kind of healthy-ish against Arizona State. Mingo had kind of a quiet game, but another true freshman that's a pretty good player. That they have guys that are capable. I think this is going to take Quinn Ewers like a legacy game for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Texas's best path forward is they've got to figure out a way to get the run game going against our front to make it to where Quinn's not just a standing duck in the pocket and things are predictable. And Quinn's got to be able to thread the needle and make things happen with his arm, which everybody has significantly struggled with since Oregon, Oregon game 1.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the make or break thing. The other thing that's really difficult for Quinn Ewers and for Texas in preparation for this is Ohio State took a really good defense that was working really well, and they're like, hey, what if we tweaked it a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
What if we tried, what if we did this? And so now they've got kind of 2 games on film of this newer look. And that's just not quite as much as Texas defense that's probably been pretty darn consistent with what they're doing all year. You have a lot of pieces and parts that you can go pick at and look at versus Ohio State. You've got 2 full games of Jordan Hancock playing kind of that pseudo safety, slot corner role, and Caleb Downs playing more of that between Lathan Ransom and Sonny Styles, just ball hawk, wherever you want it, whatever you want to do, I'm going to try and take that away across the middle of the field. That's really difficult for Quinn Ewers to try and dissect in 6 days, 7 days and prepare for this game. So that's another thing I'm kind of taking a look at is he going to be seeing the same kind of ghosts that Dylan Gabriel, or I guess I don't even think Dylan Gabriel was seeing ghosts. I don't think he was seeing anything in that first half. Yeah. It was it was just mass confusion. Do we see something similar from Quinn Ewers, or is he, does he have the experience, the talent, the arm to make things happen a little bit differently? That's the number one thing I'm looking at.
No, I think that's kind of leads right into my second point is there has been a lot of middle of the field success, and that's both from what I watched, but also I went behind enemy lines a little bit, listened to some Texas focused podcasts, and that's what they were calling out, right? Is when teams have given him the ability to tear him up ultimately in the middle, that's where they've been most successful. And I think the Caleb Downs role that has happened is going to take a lot of that away, because it took it away from Dylan Gabriel as well.
Yeah. The ground that Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom cover so fast has to be just that's not something you can simulate in a practice. I don't care how good your defense is. That is a really difficult thing to simulate in a practice. There's the practice speed, and then when you get into the game, it's going to look completely different. And all of a sudden, all those windows are going to be significantly tighter. So that'll be fun to watch. I'm excited. Like I said, I think Quinn and Dylan Gabriel are not the same QBs, but talent-wise, experience-wise, I think they have the ability to make the throws and make the plays. So it's all about, can Quinn figure it out?
Now, caveat: does Quinn Ewers play the entire game?
Yeah, it's available on DraftKings right now. Arch Manning starting second half. I don't know if you do that to Arch. That's tough. It was one thing when they did it against Georgia, they did that in a really weird situation where it's you were so close to the half where if you wanted to make the call, you could have just made it a half. And instead they threw him into a dumpster fire in the 4 minutes left in the second quarter, I think. I think that's a mistake he probably learned from. And so I think if we were to see Arch Manning, it's going to be you see Arch Manning in the second half because Quinn's got 2 interceptions and can't complete a pass. Those are the kinds of things I could see. If we get to that point, the game's already won, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's how I feel. They're not going to roll him out in the first half, I don't think. And of course, injury is a separate thing, but I think that my prediction is that we see Arch for not just like a package. I think that he comes in, and I think it's because it's a desperation. We're already down enough, but if we're gonna fight back, we need a mobile quarterback that can get outside of the pocket and make some things happen.
Something new. And Quinn Ewers will be on the sideline with his agent talking to Dan Lanning. So
yeah. So okay. We'll get better in our analysis, but overall, that's kind of my initial reaction and kind of how I felt things broke down on the Texas offense. I think
as far as their run game, I know they thrived in the run game against Clemson. That's kind of what opened things up. Arizona State, not as much. Do you think Texas is approaching this as if we don't establish the run, we are in for a really long day of Quinn Ewers trying to figure out what Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom and Denzel Burke and Jeremiah Matthews and I think if I'm Texas's offense, I'm big boys up front. They're a really good run defense team, probably the best in the country, but you've got to strap on your big boy pants, move some guys. We've got to get this to 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5 to where we have options. And it's not just a predictable 2nd and 8, Quinn's throwing the ball.
Yeah.
I think that's probably their mindset. That's a lot easier said than done with how Cody Simon and like I said, Lathan and Downs and Tyleek and Jack and JT and Caden Curry and am I missing anybody? Yeah, all those guys.
The rush. I think that if their rushing game gets going, that's where you open up the game. I think that's a pretty overall obvious statement to make here, but on my end, but that's where I do have confidence though, because the OSU defense is so damn good at defending the run that if you put Quinn in a situation like that, where it is kind of more of a one-dimensional offense and he has to throw it, I think they're in for a potentially difficult day. But this is, their offensive line is not. We're also talking about just as you did with Oregon and some of these other teams. You are talking about a lot of NFL talent and. Who knows? Maybe this is the flip or the switch that they are waiting to flip, and it happens on January 10th. But just based on what we've seen recently and how they've struggled against Arizona State of all teams on the run, that's where I have confidence in the Buckeyes. So
last thing on that, I was listening to some things before this. They run outside zone, very heavily. Jack Sawyer is number 3 in the country in stopping outside run. JT Tuimoloau is number 6 in the country stopping outside run. So we've got guys out there that are well equipped to do this. So it's the uphill battle, but I think it's the lesser of two evils for Texas. Of we're not going to just throw it all over the field and it's got to be a healthy balance. And I think that's going to be a huge thing to start the game and how Texas gets their footing a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So you looked at the defensive side of the ball a little bit.
I did.
Texas. Okay.
It's beating a dead horse, but this is a truly legendary matchup. Ohio State's wide receiver core against Texas's best in the country defensive back room. They've got the guys, or I shouldn't say they have the guys. If anybody has the guys, to put a stop to this like madness of offensive production that Will Howard and Jeremiah Smith and Igbuka are seeing, it's going to be Texas. 92.5 coverage grade, best in the country. Jahdae Barron, Makuba, Taff, the two safeties, like very, very good. The one thing that I saw, they run a lot of zone. Like Jeremiah Smith has the quote, "If you're going to play man, good luck." Like, yeah. On the flip side, Jeremiah Smith has been very good against zone defense this year. Second to only Travis Hunter in yards against zone defense, which that blew my mind. You could have told me that stat doesn't feel right, but that's insane.
Yeah.
So 700 some odd yards against zone defense. So you've got Texas, who feels very confident in those guys, and you have Ohio State that's like, that's fine. We're very good against zone. Will Howard's been good against zone. As I looking at this, my feeling is that Texas is going to say, front six, we need you guys to all out stop the run. We need you to get pressure on the quarterback, and we're going to trust the five guys that we're dropping into this zone coverage to contain, long enough. We just need you to get to the quarterback, and we need you to stop the run. So like that's kind of the story of all of this. It's like very, very good defensive backs against very, very good wide receivers. And then you've got the kind of, I'll call it a wild card, but like the Will Howard. Like, how good is Will Howard against elite level defensive backs in high pressure moments when like maybe the windows are not quite as open? You don't have guys running rampant across the middle of the field or down the sidelines. Like, is he able to place the ball in places? Is he able to move it around to other guys if they're able to, if they're doubling Jeremiah Smith, or they've got different things that maybe Will hasn't seen this year? Like, how comfortable is he getting to that second, third option, improvising on his legs? Like, those are the things I'm kind of looking at in this matchup. But if I'm a betting man, Texas is going to all out say front six. They play kind of a 4-3, 3-4, flip it up a little bit every now and then. They're going to really challenge those guys to help them win the battle up front, help them stop this kind of new counter scheme that Jim Knowles apparently stole directly from Mike Norvell. Or not Jim Knowles, sorry, Chip Kelly. Do they have the ability to stop those? And I think the answer to that question is probably not. But that's going to, like, this is another primetime offensive line, hang your nuts out. Like, Donovan Jackson, keep walking the walk, and keep propelling yourself into that first round draft grade. That's the big thing that I'm looking at.
This is where most of my nerves are for this game, is just this specific part of the matchup, OSU's offense versus Texas defense, because they've been playing out of their mind, and there just hasn't been as many question marks to me on the defensive side of Ohio State all year, right? Like, that clearly is where the most veteran experience and like fewest injury gaps, right? Like the offensive line has stepped up quite a bit, and we have Jeremiah Smith, and Will Howard's been playing out of his mind, and you have Emeka and all the other weapons, right? But also, like, there is that part of me. It's like the Michigan game did happen, and
I know
this is where there's like a lot of concern for me, and I think it's foolish to just completely discount what happened and to like just act like Oregon and Tennessee didn't happen, and how they were able to scheme things up and just tear those also good defenses apart. But
this is your fault, Ryan Day. This is your fault that we're talking this way. No, I've had the same thoughts all week. It's like, I think you and I even after Michigan were maybe some of the few left that are like, we still believe in Will Howard. Terrible game, still believe in Will Howard. Like, I don't think you and I were in the boat of like, Ohio State cannot win a championship and it's because of Will Howard. And then Tennessee happened and we're like, he might be able to do it. And then Oregon happened and we're like, oh, this guy could win us a national championship. Like he's playing out of his mind. But like you said, the games did happen. He has had some like back-breaking mistakes this year. He's had, it seems like these mistakes come early. Like the Penn State pick six, the interception against Michigan early that set them up. Like, it seems like these things are coming early in the game. And so, maybe it's, hey, I haven't seen this package yet, or, there's things that they're doing that he just didn't quite see on film or didn't have enough time to study. Like, those are the things that I'm kind of curious, like, how can Sark and that defensive back room do some creative things to make, just like we did with Dylan Gabriel, like how can they put themselves in a position that makes Will Howard's like job 10 times more difficult than it has to be?
Yeah.
So no, I've had the same kind of like a little bit of like eerie feeling of like, if we don't get off to a super hot start and like we let their defense get going, like our defense has got going, like, can Will battle back? Can he get the offense going if it's a slow start? Like, we've seen this offense buzz really quickly and like just feels like a freight train. Like, what happens if we get a 3-and-out early, or if we march down the field and have to punt? Like, can he rally around that? Can he figure things out and get back on the right track? That's it's going to be really important because, I said it on the last episode, if your expectation as a Buckeye fan is to come in here and be up 21-0 at the end of the first quarter again, like, I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think this is a really good defense, and I think this is going to be a good battle for 60 minutes. Like, so Ohio State's going to have to play 60 minutes. Texas is going to have to play 60 minutes. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about on the defensive side of the football. Texas had to play a lot of snaps against Arizona State.
Yeah.
So Makuba played 102, Barron played 101, and Taft played 98 snaps. You look at same kind of position guys on our team. Hancock played 69, Iggy played 63, Burke played 41. So our number one cornerback, if that's what we're calling Denzel Burke, I think we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Played 60 less snaps than their guys. Like, I'm trying to figure out at this point in time in the year, you played, what is it now? 14 games?
Yes, 14, but Texas has played 15, right?
They played 15?
Because they played the SEC champion, or have they played 14 and Ohio State's played 13? Because they played one more playing in the SEC championship. Because they also had the first round.
They've played 15, we played 14.
I think so.
Yeah.
Either way, they played one more game, plus like their games were down to the wire.
Yeah. And from my side of this, obviously never having been in college football at this time of the year, and quite frankly, nobody has been in college football at this time of the year with this many games under their belt.
Yeah.
Like, how big does the down to the wire fatigue, like, guys that legs are probably a little bit heavier than the guys over at Ohio State, like, how much does that play a factor as you get into like the third and fourth quarter? The same thing was true with like their defensive front, their edges, their linebackers. Like, guys played a ton of snaps, and like, I would have to assume as the game wears on, you're going to see things start to open up a little bit for Will Howard, and like a split second behind for defensive backs, or a split second behind on jumping the snap. Like, things start to open up. Texas has not been great in the third quarter. They've not been great in second half. They're a team that has gotten leads and just seems to like barely hold on by the skin of their teeth. Like, how much does that play a factor when you're going against one of the best offenses in the country? Like, I don't know. I don't know if adrenaline just completely takes over at that point, and you're like, suck it up. Suck it up. This could be your last snap. Like that.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Like, I don't know how much that plays in, but I would have to think that those high snap counts are at some point in time going to play a factor in this game compared to Ohio State, who's a little more fresh, got to rest guys a little bit sooner in Tennessee, a little bit sooner in Oregon. Like, I think that's going to be a big thing for us.
Yeah, I think overall it plays out to be a disadvantage for Texas. I would say the only devil's advocate advantage here for them is that they have had to squeeze a couple of these wins out.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that goes a long way.
Of these games out. Yeah, so it's like Ohio State has not had to really I don't think that they've let go of the intensity by any means, but they really haven't had to play a whole lot of second half football.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, they're 1-2 this year in games that were really close.
Yep.
They lost to Oregon really close. They beat Penn State close. They lost to Michigan really close. They blew out Tennessee and blew out Oregon. Like,
you can maybe throw them 2-2. Give them
I guess
the advantage
Nebraska.
With Nebraska,
yeah, I'm not. It was painful to put them in there. Yeah.
So they've proven that they can outlast, but they've also proven that they can make some, whether it's coaching or player or a combination of both. They've made some mistakes, and Texas has had to outlast a couple opponents, again, for better or worse, on their end as well. So,
yep.
But overall, I think it does play out to be a disadvantage because, Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith, and he is fresher than your cornerback.
It's we keep talking about like Jeremiah Smith, and like I think it does a little bit of a, not take it off on a tangent, but like, you're not just prepping for Jeremiah Smith. The country as a whole is looking and going, oh my God, this freshman wide receiver is amazing. He's doing all these things. But like, Sark is in his office, a dark room right now, watching film and going, holy shit. There's Emeka Ibuka. There's Carnell Tate. There's G. Scott's making plays. Like, there's all these guys, like everybody's screaming Jeremiah Smith, but there's so much more to this offense that allows Jeremiah Smith to be open and do those things. And like, I think that's the really challenging thing for Texas coming into this is like, there's the big Jeremiah Smith story, but there's so much more to this offense than just that guy. So to give credit to Chip Kelly and Ryan Day and that wide receiver room is like, they can go, and it's not just one guy. And like, if things break down and they shut down Jeremiah Smith, we've got other guys that can go get it done. So like that's the confidence side for me. It's like, we got dogs. We can do this.
Got it.
All right. So you had a couple questions here.
I do. Okay. So both sides of the ball have been playing their A game the past two matchups, but in losses we have seen, I would say probably, I don't know. The Oregon loss, like it was more on the defense. Michigan loss, it was definitely on the offense. So when things are not both at their A game, which is going to impact the Buckeyes more? So kind of the same question, but we'll start off with the defense. Can Ohio State not play? Can their defense not play the way that they played in the last two games and still win this game? Basically the question is, can the offense carry the defense in this game? So I'll leave it there for now.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And it depends on what you mean by like the defense not playing the way they did against. Like, if the question is like, can Texas score 28 points and Ohio State still win? I think so. Like, there's still a world where like the defense plays okay. Texas gets some things going on offense, but like our offense is just a little bit too much for theirs. But like, if it's Texas scores 41 points, like I think that's an improbable thing, but like, I don't think we have a chance of winning that fight.
Yeah, it's hard to, I guess, could have put it in a little better context. I mean, I'm not saying like an all out just bad performance, but I am saying like they've been playing their A game and they've been, stopping drives specifically early to complement the offense. Can they give up a couple of drives early on and maybe make some adjustments? But yes, give up, call it 28 points. Can Ohio State against this defense still win that game?
Yeah, I think so. Like the offense is talented enough, like you said. Like, can they carry them? I think so. But like, there's the other aspect of it of like momentum and like the energy from the team. Like, I think an underrated aspect of these last two games is like the offense is feeding the defense and the defense is feeding into the offense. So like, what does it look like if Ohio State scores and then Texas goes and scores and it's like, oh shit, well that now we're back to all even versus what's been the case of like Ohio State scores 3 and out, Ohio State scores, like it's feeding into each other. So it'll be interesting to kind of see, if everything isn't firing on all cylinders for the defense, like how does Will Howard continue to move the ball down the field and be really productive without like that energy and momentum that we've seen in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think overall agree. I do think that they can still win, but I do think the defense does need to play. In a game here. There's too many, and you can say it for both sides. Maybe we'll see what our thoughts are here on the offensive side of it. But I would say the old adage of defense wins.
Defense
natties,
wins, right? Yeah. Defense wins natties.
So, okay. Can OSU's offense play a B game? So Will Howard makes a couple mistakes here and there, not completely back-breaking pick sixes, but, a couple of mistakes he's been prone to do. Maybe Jeremiah Smith's getting locked up a little bit. Not a complete non-factor, but not to his overall standards. So let's just, imagine what a B game is. You think the defense can carry him to a win? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it this year. Like, Georgia is kind of the blueprint of that, of like, our offense was not humming at all. Like there wasn't much going on, but on the other side of the ball, Georgia's defense was playing pretty well. Quinn Ewers just wasn't able to get a ton going, and like they squeak out that win. I think what was it, 16-14? It was a god awful game. So like, it's out there. The evidence is out there that like if you put up a phenomenal defensive performance against Texas, you have a chance to go win that game, even if your offense isn't, firing on all cylinders. And I think our offense's off day is drastically better than Georgia's offense's off day. Like I think I feel pretty confident in that. So yeah, I think if you're asking both of the questions, the defense is the one that has to show up and be really good. The offense is the one that's like, if they both show up, Ohio State wins. If the defense shows up, but the offense is a little murky, like you can still go win that game. On the flip side, I think if the defense isn't quite there, but the offense is playing well, that's when you get into a shootout. And I don't feel as confident on that side.
For sure. No, I think not much more to add there because I 100% agree with you. So, okay. Score prediction, Matt, put it in your court.
28-17 has just been kind of like sitting in my mind for the week. 28-17, and I'm going to say it's like a 28-10, like late in the fourth, midway through the fourth. And they'll have that score that kind of makes you pucker up a little bit. But I'm going to leave it at 28-17 kind of is where I've got it.
Okay. Similar range, but I'll go 24-14.
24-14.
24-14. So, I mean, I think it is a ball game going into half. I think Ohio State separates a little bit out of halftime, and you also didn't factor into that 17 points on your end is that Auburn cannot make a kick. Can he make a kick?
We'll see. Sark's going to go make out with him in midfield again. Probably not, maybe. Okay, great. Hey,
We did it.
We did a little more X's and O's than we usually do.
Proud of us.
Yeah, I'm very proud of us. There was one other question I was going to ask you, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was going to be. This is great podcasting. Is this an SEC legacy game?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, if you're talking about like just Southern football and SEC specific, like having zero representation after all the talking that was done, and it's 2 Northern teams and potentially 2 Big Ten teams.
That's and it would be
pretty rough.
Back-to-back years of
it
would be back-to-back years of no SEC schools in the national championship. Like that's that's tough. It'd be back-to-back years of their top dog losing to a Big Ten team to get to the national championship, and like you're starting to see the momentum already of like, I can't remember the last time that the SEC really felt like they were really getting laughed at. There's always been like the poking fun, but like right now everybody's kind of laughing at them. And so like this could be a big momentum changer. I know Texas is not new to or is new to the SEC, so like maybe it's not quite as impactful if this was Georgia or Alabama, but it still feels like it sends a pretty strong message to like the South that like the North is starting to rule a little bit. And I'm all for that. Obviously I want it to be Ohio State holding up the trophy at the end, but either way, like I feel like this is a really big North versus South kind of grudge match of who really is top dog right now. I really like that. Like all 4 of these teams, this is a really cool playoff. A very, very cool playoff. I'm super happy that we're here. I love the Penn State Notre Dame matchup. We didn't really talk about that, but so much fun. Like these playoffs have been phenomenal. Obviously we're on our high horse right now with Ohio State playing well, but This has been a ton of fun. The 12 team, I know it's not perfect right now, but man, it's for year 1 for us. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's worked out pretty well. I mean, again, remove the OSU bias a little bit. Yeah, I don't think you can ask for 4 better teams. I mean, of course you can. I'm sure some people prefer Oregon in that picture, but either way, they were taken care of. So, all right, well, we will be back on Monday to recap everything. I'm sure we'll be tweeting out things as well, so make sure you follow us on Twitter. Thank you all for joining the journey, and hopefully we are back next Monday in a very, very good mood and previewing a national championship. And if not, you'll want to be there as well because it will just be a therapy session. So thank you all for listening.
All right, bye guys. Go Bucks.